at some point in time, we were interested in
Health and Human Services.
But there was such a flux about what to do with this building, we didn't feel we could actually propose anything to Health and Human Services because we didn't know if we were going to have a building in which to put them in.
We did get their requirements.
Okay.
For RFP.
It seemed to me that when we had that discussion earlier, there was a concern about whether or not they might offer a lease agreement sufficiently long to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we totally threw it out of the discussion, but I guess I'm not quite ready to let it go out of the discussion. I think it's an issue that ought to be addressed, and certainly we don't know the needs of every agency and what we will do, but I think there are some preliminary things we could find out, and they could be done relatively quickly.
Thank you. Mr. Solomon, did you have something else to add?
Well, I was just led to believe that the delegation was not interested in expanding this use to other agencies.
I don't think that was right. I don't think we ever got the information.
If I could, we had asked, one of the questions by the subcommittee early on, several months back, was what contracts they had in place, what contracts they were working on, and what the needs of those contracts were. They had nothing in place. My understanding on Health and Human Services is they put out their bid of what they were looking for. That time period has gone by.
Yes.
They're in the process of forming some decision, and as of present, we have nothing before us. We'll note that Representative Unberger has brought forward the point that we have at least a 6-month window, that it wouldn't be affecting us one way or the other, and if there was something pending out there that had space that would pay its weight moving forward, we'd certainly consider that. Representative Merrill?
Thank you. Why don't we ask the commissioners to go to Health and Human Services, if it's not too late, or whatever else, and say, look, this is what we're considering. Would you be interested, and what kind of a lease would you give us, even though we haven't made a decision yet? Should we even consider it? It seems to me we ought to get something. We don't have any information.
It's my understanding, and Mr. Solomon can correct me if I'm wrong, that proposal has gone by. It's gone.
Gone, okay.
It's gone. I would also add that at this point in time, we have the potential of 3,000 square feet and possibly even more for a good tenant to walk into. So I would like to see that we could work with the cooperative, but if there is some other good tenant out there for 3,000 square feet, we have 3,000 square feet. And I would suggest there is no tenant out there right now for that expense. Commissioner Solomon.
I'd just like to point, I did go to Department of Health and Human Services. It is too late, but their RFP has already gone out. Unless, of course, for some reason, they don't accept whatever they get in. Right. That's, of course, a possibility. There is also the probation office that needs 1,000 square feet of room for their facility. They're presently in a very small portion, an office building in Wolfboro, and they are looking to get back to this area, which would be much more convenient for them, given the jail is right there. So that is also something that is possible. But it is difficult to go out and offer people something if you don't know if you're going to have something there to offer them. They don't want to hear, we may have a building, or we may have a piece of a building. They want to know that there's something that's going to be there. And unless I can go out and tell them that, I have difficulty saying we are offering this to you.
Thank you. Commissioner Solomon, I would say that it was very likely that you have 3,000 square feet that you can be speaking to someone about. Representative Merrill?
No, I was just going to say, I don't think you have to commit yourself. You could just say, you know, if somebody is interested, they're interested. I wouldn't have any problem doing that if it was my business at all, and went out and say, look, I may have X amount of square feet. Would you be interested in how seriously? And then, and if we can make it palatable enough, probably you can have it. I don't have any.
As long as they pay for the renovation.
Correct. Representative Algren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I would say that, the commissioners have had the opportunity for over 3 years to be seeking out the possibilities to what to do with this space. I mean, that time is just now drawing to a close. I mean, from the moment we approved the bond, you knew that this space was going to be available, and those queries and those interests should have been pursued for the past 3 years. Unfortunately, the time has elapsed. I mean, perhaps there just isn't an interest. Maybe that's the issue, to that end. And, I concur, we do have 3,000 square feet, as available, or at the 11th hour. If something seems reasonable, then I'm sure that the delegation would seriously consider it. But you have a space, it's just, and you've had it now for 3 years.
Okay. Representative Altenberger?
Yes, I need to ask some questions about the roof.
Please.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Roof. Okay. If we did nothing with the roof, okay, just left it as it is, what is your estimate of a lifespan of the current roof?
It's a tough call. It's an older metal roof, kind of a pre-engineered style metal roof that's on there. Could it be used? I suppose. It's been band-aided, it's been fixed already in some cases. You could continue to do that. This re-roofing package that you have in front of you is intended to return it to its original building with pitched internal drains, take the opportunity to add some insulation, put a, as Mark said, a 20-25 year membrane roof on it, a new rubber roof, if you will. So I don't know. I mean, you could use it, but it's going to continue to be a maintenance problem. I know Bob has had some leaks. He's had some issues. He'd know better than I think. But if I'm going to renovate it, I'm going to invest this sort of money, I'd want to replace the roof. Doesn't mean you have to, but I think it would be wise at this point to do it. If you're going to invest a significant amount of cash in fixing up the building underneath it, you really should change the roof at the same time.
And flat membrane roofs, okay.
But he hates the word flat roof, I know.
Well, I don't hate flat. That's
okay.
That's a word.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have heard all different kinds of lifespans for membrane roofs.
Yep.
Anywhere from 10 to 25.
Right.
And with having to replace the membrane, or patch it or do whatever. And you have indicated that you think this is a 20-year solution.
Correct.
Now, is that 20 years without patching, or is that 20 years with some?
It should be 20 years with no patching. It should be warranted. If it's usually we go with a fully adhered, heavier membrane. There's cheap roofs like anything. I mean, you can put a lesser quality roof. If you do it properly the first time, 20 years shouldn't be an issue. Most membrane roofs should live in the 25 to 30 year range. They typically will warranty them 15, 20, depending on and you pay for that warranty. But I would, warranty it from the factory and the installer. And you should easily have a 20-year solution. Most roofs that folks, you hear bad stories about flat roofs that I find are usually in the 30-year plus category and reaching the end of their life. So people are up there with roof cement and rubber and trying to get by a few more years. That's usually when you have your issues. If it's done properly, it's a good quality building, a good quality roof system.
So whoever puts it on, you can purchase a guarantee for 20 years?
Absolutely, absolutely. Certainly 15. I think you can still buy 20.
15 to 20. Yeah, no, if the TPO membranes up to 20.
Typically what happens is the manufacturer backs it after the first couple. First couple of years the roofer honors it, and then the manufacturer kicks in and they'll send out folks.
Same as on a regular roof, it's a decreasing amount over the 20 years.
Correct. This includes also, if anybody's into roofing, this budget includes putting tapered insulation and so forth to get the proper pitches that we need, because the existing roof likely doesn't have them. The code has changed since then, so this would have a little steeper pitch. Even though it's called a flat roof, it would drain to internal roof drains and be taken out.
Satisfied?
Thank you.
Just to follow up on Representative Umberger's question about the roof. If it's a flat roof, is the structure going to be able to hold the snow load without anyone getting up to shovel it off?
Should not be an issue, but as part of the design processing here, what we would want to do is we want to do a structural review. What we do know is that a good portion of the older building was designed to have a second floor. A lot of it has concrete slabs on the second floor, so it's probably heavier loaded. The 84 wing, which is the box in the back, has a pretty substantial joist structure on it, joisted metal deck. It's on our list of items to check, but I don't see anything that would lead me to believe that it's a major issue. If it came out that it was an issue in the structural review, some minor reinforcement could be done to that steel during the renovation to increase its capacity. We do that quite often these days. Simply welding rods and joists and reinforcing the members, fairly straightforward, gives it much more weight capacity. But that would all be looked at that design stage.
Thank you. Question for the commissioners. Have you had conversations with the co-op? Representative Babson, I know you're also involved in this. Have you had a conversation that if this space were to come available, what part they might be able to participate in helping us with the cost of that renovation?
I can tell you that hasn't been discussed, and there wouldn't be any money
I
available.
was about to say there would be no money.
Okay.
Just a rental.
Just a rental.
Yeah.
We have received a letter from them saying that I believe it was 3,000 square feet that they were looking at recently.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I got one over here.
Yes.
I just want to check my math here. So if we go with this proposal here, then we would be including items 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 12, and that would be a cost of $1,280,000.
Yes. Did you simply add 6 to my yellow?
Yeah, because
Yes.
if we were doing,
Yes.
if we're renovating,
I think, 1,280,000 would be a turnkey, call it a maximum. I think once you
if
get into
you're going-
design, obviously we'll work through the detail, but
Commissioner, that would be 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 12.
Well, 2, 3 are the ones.
So you're taking 2 and 3 off.
No.
everything in our example and adding 6, correct? Is that true?
I always taking 2 and 3 off.
I'm sorry,
He's talking the net of all of
You're
those.
talking the net,
Up
2,
to-
3, and 4 combined.
that's what I meant, the net. So
Oh,
item
okay.
4,
Item
which would
4.
be 410,000.
Yes.
Are you following?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep, gotcha now.
Okay.
It'd be our 980 example and then adding the co-op renovation.
All right, so we're looking at a turnkey then of, assuming the co-op, I hate to use that word, comes down.
Office space.
And they renovate that space, so we're looking at almost 1.3 million. You know.
Which would be .3 more than what we'd asked for.
Right, but I'm just trying to say that I think what we were trying to do, I don't think it's really doable for under $1 million. I think we're realistically looking at 1.3. So, let me just throw that out there. If you're,
Thank you. It's logical conclusion for what we have.
Keep in mind, if you go with that, you're precluding a purchasing agent and storage area for a purchasing agent. So what's more important? Bringing the cooperative down here for no good reason, other than to bring them down here, or to use that space for a purchasing agent and have a place to store things that he's purchased and go.
if I could, again, I don't know ultimately what that space is going to be used for, but I'd like to say that that's the space we have, and whatever happens to it is probably going to have to include item 6, that renovation cost, to bring it up to snuff. That's my only point here. The issue of purchasing agents, and I don't know, that, you're above my pay grade on that, but,
Thank you.
Fit in with the maintenance.
Thank you. If I could just follow up before I move on to Representative Merrill and then the $300,000 figure, Randy, that you're using is floor, petitions, a livable white space to move into.
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
Based on their program, Mark. They did give us a short program that accounted for a little over 2,500 or so feet with the items that they wanted, the rooms.
Right.
Which, that's where they, I think, originally got their 3,000. We've included a little casework, an office. You know, it's a ready, built-in office, ready to go.
Thank you. So, to the conversation between the gentlemen, whether this was space used for the co-op or whether this was for a purchasing agent, if it was a purchasing agent or some other use, that would be a lesser number than 300,000. And I would hope the commissioners would, before we would approve that kind of money, we again would have a tenant in mind and what a use is, and then they could then target that for what needs to be done. Representative Merrill, now come to
I could debate, I guess, and I'm not going to, but I could debate whether or not it made sense to move the co-op down here based on what's happened over the last 5 years. But aside from that, it would seem to me that if we didn't move the co-op down here and somebody rented that space, then we would have to at least obtain $40,000 for that space to offset the cost for the co-op, because that's the money you're going to be saving after they were in there.
Thank you, Representative Merrill. I would like you to put it from this perspective. We have 3,000 square foot space that we could break into perfectly good rentable office space at a cost of $300,000. Who fills that space? I don't care. We have a rentable envelope that's an income producer. So if the commissioners were to come forward with Health and Human Services, with someone that was spending an amount of money that made sense for us, then it would become a consideration. Whether, I don't think the subcommittee's goal is to figure out where the co-op is going to go. So I'd like to remove that out of the conversation.
Our goal is
it's an envelope, is on the building.
Mr. Chairman, when I agreed with Representative McCarthy's on the purchasing, I was including that in the maintenance section. There should be enough room in that maintenance section to have the purchasing area the same.
Thank you. Good point.
Yeah. If I might,
Yes.
I don't think we really care what you do inside the building. We're just trying to decide what does the shell,
Does it make sense?
what makes sense for the shell. Do we want 10,000 square feet, or do we want the 15,000 square feet? And I think that, from what they've said is that, 6 months to 9 months to a year, whatever, is the window of when we need to make the decision about demolishing the rest of the stuff. And so, that gives the commissioners time to decide what they want. Perhaps at this point, and we have 2 years on the money, at this point, I'm personally not in favor of adding 6 into this particular thing. I would rather kind of leave that and let the commissioners figure out what they plan to do with that space, because the 300,000 may be not 300,000. It may be, it may be some other number, and that once they figure that out, then they come back to the delegation and say, this is what I need to renovate for these particular customers. It may be the co-op, it may be Health and Human Services, it may be probation, it may be, whoever they come back with. But we can certainly, with the money that's left over, we have some additional time to allow them to figure out what should go in there. and you know, how that particular agency is going to do what needs to be done. So my feeling is, we don't do anything with, you know, doing anything, the 300,000 for the co-op, until we have commitments from them and they have decided what they want, and the next delegation can determine.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Fleck?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is really a question for Randy, and it's a clarification for me, and maybe I missed this point. But I look at the front of that building, and I'm wondering whether we can allow the front to stand, demolish the wings, but not incur more cost than if we were to demolish the wings plus the front of the court.
You would have a little bit more cost, and the only reason is because you have so much more exterior wall replacement on the sides. If that, the reason you saved money in whatever item number that was, in that scenario 4, the biggest savings you had was exterior wall cost. In taking off the wings, we're infilling the sides versus just going across here. So you actually had a lot more infill on the other side. That's where the savings came from.
Yeah.
So it would be a little bit more, not necessarily catastrophically more, but it would add some money.
So if I could just do a follow-up then? So the if we were to just allow that to stand, there's a difference in the roofing of about another $135,000, I think.
If you roofed it, I mean, Jim and I were just talking on the side about that. If you move forward with something here, I don't see that you're harming yourself in any way by roofing this, creating whatever space this becomes, and not demolishing. I think Representative Umberger asked about that timing. I think there's no reason why, from my view, the only expense you have in saving time to demolishing these at the tail end might be a little bit of tie-in along this roof line where it transitions to the metal roof. But until you know what you're doing with this, I wouldn't obviously spend the membrane roof money. I would only go to here.
Right. Okay.
And that would buy you a little time. I mean, in my mind, in a perfect world, you would move forward, the delegation would approve some amount of funds, and you would design this solution.
Sure.
Right? As part of that solution, to be some limitation on a timeline. And when would you demo these? If I was running the ship for you guys, I would want some direction on, give me a time window, and I think 6 months doesn't scare me at all, as far as saying if 6 months from now the decision was made whether or not to demolish these, I don't see it wasting your money. I don't see it being a huge headache to put that on the tail end. You could buy that 6 months easily, assuming that the delegation moved forward sooner rather than later and you began design on this solution. I think you could work around that and build this into that component as a later demolition, or not. We'd obviously have to make some and/or options, but I don't think they're a big deal as far as a planning perspective goes.
Good, thank you.
Representative Brown?
Yeah, I kind of like what I'm hearing. I like what Representative Umberger said to a degree, and I also see us sitting here and spinning our wheels on some things that we probably don't even need to be discussing today. So with that in mind, if it's an order, I'd like to make a motion.
I think we're ready at that point, if you could hold on to your motion.
Okay.
No, we did a subcommittee motion to.
Correct.
No, I meant a subcommittee motion.
I'd like to get questions out of the way before we accept a motion at this point in time. Are there any more questions for Randy and or his group at this point in time from the commissioners?
Just one question regarding that point of that interior wall. If you didn't demolish the front of it, would you put in that interior wall anyway, or just leave it?
By the electric room, you mean? This
No, that one that sections off the rest of the core sections. That wall right there. When would that be put in?
That's currently a masonry bearing wall right now. You have
Yep.
steel bearing on that wall, and there's a block wall there.
Yep.
If you won't have to do anything to it except potentially maybe some fire rating here at these openings, if this remained.
Yeah, okay.
Right. If we ultimately tear it down, we've got to make sure this is winterized and has an exterior finish on it.
Yeah. Okay.
If we don't, there's really not a lot to do to it other than fire rating.
Okay, and if I could. So let's say that the recommendation were to come down that we were going to accept the proposal at the $980,000 for the renovation of this building. That includes that it has not only a heating source that's in there, it also has, being the pellet, it has a backup system. That price includes that this has fire suppression systems in place. Your proposal is that it's ready space with the exception of the $300,000 for that office space, but it's a complete building as you see it right now. Correct. Okay. Representative Babson.
If I understand you right, Mr. Chairman, you want them to agree that it's just a turnkey operation. When it's finished, you walk in and you're ready to move your furniture in and use it.
With the exception of the 3,000 square feet.
With the exception of the 3,000.
But the rest of the building's ready to go,
Yes.
No.
meets life safety code, everything else.
You just want to make sure something isn't missing, basically, but it's a the intention is to give you turnkey options with the soft cost.
That is good. Anyone else have some further questions at this point in time? Representative McCarthy?
Does it include anything on the exterior, you know, where everything's gonna be torn down? Will it be soldered in or something?
Yes, yes. Anywhere we choose to do demolition, lawns are put back, landscaping is moved around. Like along the back, for example, we felt along the dining room, the windows are relatively, you know, they're in good shape and so forth. There'd be some minor cosmetic repairs to the outside of the building. But basically, the brick's in reasonable shape, you know, maybe pressure wash, clean up, a little bit of paint to make it look nice, but site work stays pretty much intact other than what we disturb. But I think that's okay for what it's used for.
1 second. And I'll open up for your question, but to the commissioners, do you have a cost factor of what it's cost us to this time to keep that building heated, water systems on, nothing freezing? Do you have a number?
No, I don't, but it's minimal, very minimal.
What's minimal in your mind?
Well, we budgeted $30,000. It's in the budget that you approved back a month ago. Whether we spend that or not, I don't know. The wings are being cut off. There's no electricity. Very, very little heat going into the wings just to maintain it so it doesn't freeze.
So you're well under your $30,000 projection?
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other question?
I just want
Go ahead,
to
Commissioner.
ask, how does the committee want to handle the demolition? Do you want the Bonapage and Stone to handle that? Do we want to put that out for bid? I can get an estimate, because we don't have the estimate for the front of the building to demo that. We got an estimate for the 4 wings, which is roughly $111,000 to take down the 4 wings, but we don't have the front section. So do you want me to get at least a proposal from Always Wrecking about the front section, or do you want to leave that all with the building?
Commissioner, I would answer, allow the subcommittee to get to a point that we make our recommendation. It would seem to be your decision, you know, and it would make sense to me personally that you would find out what that cost is going to be and make sure that it fell in the privy of what Bonapage and Stone has put together. Any questions before I close this part? My intention here is to take a 5-minute break, use the bathroom, cup of coffee, and then reconvene the subcommittee after that. So are there questions of the members first? Yes.
I don't remember if we discussed this, but I was wondering about the age and the how effective the boiler is. Is it a good, is the boiler?
The boilers were new within the last...
I was going to say less than 5 years old.
Oh, okay.
Less than 5 years old.
The good news, yeah, the good news is with that pellet system in the building, you should be, you're going to use that gas very little.
In fact, we took one of those boilers out and moved it into the new nursing home.
Right. They were that new, actually. We did relocate them.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the delegation at this point in time before I open it up to Damon, if there's others that want to ask questions? Seeing none. Damon, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple regarding the use for veterans. Is there going to be, will there be, you know, bathrooms and kitchens, and how would that work in the wing space? And also, would the delegation be willing to take veterans from New England or the rest of the state or Maine, somewhere else to actually fill it, or would it only be limited to Carroll County?
If I could, the idea brought forward by Commissioner Solomon would be entirely in their wheelhouse